family, money, and scandal. All three are rearing their conspicuous heads in the life of Maria Callas. This episode begins with a focus on her portrayal of Norma, with an exceptional performance of Casta diva. There are many examples of the diva speaking on many things, such as fees, the estrangement from her mother, and an excerpt from a candid interview with her father. The listener will also hear of the Met Lucia broadcast, excerpts of an interview with Walter Legge, the love duet from Un ballo and maschera with Giuseppe di Stefano, the duet from Anna Bolena with Giulietta Simionato, and then the infamous Rome walkout after the first act of Norma. Part 3 of 6.
As evil as was Callas's Medea, and as moving as was her Violetta, it is as the druid priestess in Bellini's Norma that Callas is at her most unforgettable.
I don't say she resembles me, or maybe yes in a certain way. I mean, she's very strong. In other words, she just roars like a lion, but actually she's not. The Casta diva is only a consequence, rather a straight line of singing, which of course is very difficult also because after these strong, powerful recitatives, you have to keep the line very peaceful and very nearly silvery.
The English critic J.B. Steen has written that Callas sings Casta diva with what can best be called love.
Even though Callas had become the most famous prima donna in the world, she remained the complete professional, one aware of her limitations and anxious to improve.
She was a very highly strung person and very, very ambitious. And she would drive herself. She would rehearse till 2 o'clock in the morning. In fact, I was hauled over the coals in Dallas because I said, I can't rehearse anymore, I'm going home. And it was 12:15, midnight. And the head of the company said, what do you mean you're going home? Maria would work here till 2 o'clock until everything was all right.
That was Joan Sutherland.
You grow into habits like hanging on to words. For instance, if you say Casta diva, you can't, if you speak Casta diva, you can't say Casta diva. Or you sing the same way. You can't say Casta diva che in argenti. On stage, you get into these bad habits.
It was as Norma that Callas finally made her much-awaited debut at the Metropolitan Opera in the fall of 1956. This was preceded by an unflattering cover story in Time magazine that focused on all the Callas cliches, the tigress, the temperamental soprano, a difficult colleague, her rivalry with Tebaldi, a woman who refused to support her mother and supposedly told her to go jump out the window. But when Callas made her entrance as Bellini's Druid priestess and slowly walked forward through the chorus, even before she began to sing, there was a hush. The audience was transfixed. The great American actress Ina Clare, who was in the audience that night, turned to her neighbor and declared in a loud stage whisper, "That girl knows her business." Callas had this to say about her debut.
I suppose I did have a bit of, shall we call it bad publicity, some articles against me, but I must say I was most happy at the Met.
When it came to her voice, it was clear she knew it was a controversial sound.
Some people say I have a beautiful voice, some people say I have not. It's a matter of opinion. Some people say I have a unique voice, and some people say it's just a whole big lie. People who don't like me can just not come and hear me. As for unique, I don't know whether it is unique. I think it's not. I think I'm just doing what once upon a time was done. Once upon a time, sopranos were considered sopranos, not light or heavy or medium or whatever you call it. A soprano was supposed to do every kind of opera. It's like a violinist, a pianist. It has to perform any kind of music.
Callas was asked to contrast singing at La Scala with performing at the Met.
On one side, I'm happier at the Scala because you see the Scala has more money. The Scala has, I can't say more tradition because the Metropolitan has an enormous tradition. I have sung there more. You see, at the Metropolitan, I have only had 2 months' work there. Forgive my word job because it's so vulgar. I have given birth to so many operas at the Scala, where at the Metropolitan, no. The opera house in itself is lovelier. The acoustic is much nicer. At the Met, unfortunately, we do not have a nice acoustic. And I'm afraid that's why I can't be very happy. You see, when you sing at the Metropolitan, you lose control of your voice because you don't hear it at all, so you force yourself. I will do my best to be happy at the Met, especially because the public has been so wonderful to me, and I've been so very happy with Mr. Bing.
A special air of anticipation can be felt throughout the Opera House, for we are about to hear the Metropolitan Radio debut of Maria Callas. Miss Callas will be heard in the title role of Gaetano Donizetti's Lucia de Lammermoor, a work which is automatically associated with coloratura, virtuosity, and splendor. Mr. Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Cross, and good afternoon. In view of the fact that opera is an international art, I think it is extremely interesting to note that today's cast is international too. I'm sure you would like to meet them. First, Maria Callas.
How do you do to you all? How do you do, Mr. Bing? Thank you. I'm not good at words, I suppose. The only thing I can say is to this vast, enormous public is that I hope I do, please you. I'm so happy to be with you today, especially in my own country. When I think that I stole so much of my homework just to listen to these Saturday broadcasts when I was a child, it's just, well, it gives me, I suppose, a bit the jitters to have to do it today. Although I should be used to it. Anyway, I do wish to give you a hearty thanks and hello to the Greek part of my blood, that is to all the Greeks here, to the Americans, I'm born here, so I consider myself an American, and to the Italians, being an Italian wife. So thank you all, God bless you, and thanks again.
Thank you, Maria Callas. And now to the villain of this afternoon's performance, Enzo Sordello, who sings the part of Enrico.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Bing. È la prima volta che mi trovo negli Stati Uniti. Ne ho ricevuto una grandissima impressione.
Bing's introduction of Sordello as the opera's villain was more apt than he could have known at the time. A run-in between Callas and Sordello during the performance provided further fuel for the myth of Callas, the temperamental prima donna. She was not in her best form for the broadcast and had to clip short a high note at the end of her duet with Sordello. He, however, held on to his last note. Callas felt Sordello's conduct was unprofessional, given the circumstances, and protested to Bing, as did conductor Fausto Pleva. Sordello was fired, and the incident resulted in another Callas scandal. Despite Callas's indisposition and the run-in with Sordello, her Lucia made an enormous impact on the Met's audience.
Miss Callas motions to Maestro Pleva as the audience shouts from the floor. She bows and now she's throwing kisses to the audience. And she does all this in a sort of graceful, slow-motion style.
In an effort to counter the bad publicity concerning her mother, Callas was even willing to subject her father to a television interview.
If you'd hold that phone and put him on another phone right next to you, if you could.
Here he is. I'm afraid he's a very proud father. The only time we do quarrel is when he brags about me.
Fine. Has he gotten the phone yet, Mr. Callas? Hello?
Hello, Mr. Gardner.
Hello, how are you, Mr. Callas?
Fine, thank you. I am very glad to hear you.
I'm very glad to talk with you, too. Well, now, are you and Mama Callas divorced?
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Callas said the other day, and I'm quoting her now, I just want to see Maria, to embrace her and to kiss her. I will not mention money. Who wants money? I want my child's love. And then she said, and I'm quoting again, I read that a magazine has offered Maria $50,000 for her story. Why don't they give it to me? I have a grand story to tell. End the quote. Now, would you say that this is the way to win back a daughter's love?
I believe this attitude of mother, somebody else is behind her and does that.
I see. We had another quote here in which it was said, Maria herself was said that, and I'm quoting, my sister was slim and beautiful and friendly. I was the ugly duckling, fat and clumsy and unpopular. It's a cruel thing to make a child feel ugly and unwanted. If the quote is accurate, who made her feel unwanted?
Mother does always. Sometimes I thought to her, it's not good to treat the daughter this way. It is better thing to treat both like lovely daughters.
Well, I'm awfully glad you got on the phone because there are a number of these things that I know that I wouldn't want to ask Madame Callas about, and I hope, and do you think that sometime there may be a reconciliation?
Mr. Wagner, the time is the best doctor for everything.
Callas's break with her mother had come in 1950, following her first season in Mexico. To Callas, their estrangement was a private family matter.
I have never spoken against my mother, though I could have. So it's not for the public that I don't want to speak against my mother. It's for my own sake. I want to be in peace with myself. My mother has a right to say anything she wants, pro or against me.
The root of the trouble was money. When it was not forthcoming, Evangelia Callas applied pressure.
Well, she says you either give me this and that, otherwise I'll plaster against all the newspapers, and that she did. She used blackmail, unfortunately, and I don't like blackmail by anybody.
In addition to her problems with her mother, Callas was enraged to find that her sister Jackie started voice lessons and had singing aspirations of her own. At La Scala, things were not going well for Callas. Its public was becoming more aggressive and less willing to tolerate the emerging flaws in her voice. Many thought the growing unsteadiness in her upper register was the result of her extreme weight loss. But Callas's top notes had been unruly long before she slimmed down. A more plausible explanation was that Callas had put greater demands on her voice than it could comfortably bear. The first signs of difficulty showed in her top register. which began to wobble out of control. In a performance of the Barber of Seville at La Scala, Callas entered the lesson scene on a strident, unsteady high note. The audience was well behaved, until the tenor's line, Bella voce, what a beautiful voice. That was more than the anti-Callas faction was willing to bear. Walter Legge, Callas's longtime recording producer, told a British radio interviewer about another anti-Callas demonstration at La Scala.
It was the habit of her fans to occupy the seats in the gallery nearest to the stage, and when she took her curtain calls at the end of the opera, to shower her with small bouquets. The fans of a rival soprano decided they would disturb this. So they had bunches of radishes and bunches of carrots and other small vegetables. They got there earlier than the Callas fans, occupied the seats nearest to the proscenium arch, and instead of Callas getting her usual shower of bouquets, she got a shower of vegetables and, of course, some bouquets from her own fans. She is very short-sighted, and she walked down, picked up each of these offerings from the floor, sniffed them. The vegetables were dropped into the orchestra. The flowers were handed to her colleagues. It was one of the supreme examples of absolute sovereignty of the stage and quickness of thinking I've ever known.
But there were great successes at Scala to counterbalance the failures. In 1957, Callas triumphed in a new production of Verdi's Un ballo in maschera with tenor Giuseppe di Stefano. Considering what Callas and Di Stefano would later mean to one another, it is ironic that they were often adversaries. Callas's record producer, Walter Legge, who was married to soprano Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, told this story on the BBC.
I thought I found a marvellous couple, the sort of Caruso and Melba, what Caruso and Melba were at Covent Garden. And this tenor's, or his wife, found out that Callas, like my wife, is allergic to the smell of garlic, because they both get a surplus of saliva in the mouth, the very smell of garlic. So this tenor's wife started standing in the wings, and before every love duet or every embrace, the tenor walked to the wings, stretched out a hand, took 4 or 5 pieces of garlic, shoved them in his mouth, chewed them.
Oh, you're joking.
And then embraced Callas, who could not get rid of the surplus saliva that she got in her mouth.
Oh, no.
The same season brought a now historic revival of Anna Bolena, directed by Visconti and starring Callas in the title role, with Giulietta Simionato as Jane Seymour. Her Scala triumphs were the calm before the major storm in her career. Callas was engaged to open the 1958 opera season in Rome for a gala performance of Norma to be performed in the presence of the President of Italy, Giovanni Gronchi. Callas had caught a cold during the rehearsal period, which became progressively worse. As the opening night approached, Callas, who rarely canceled performances, felt she would have to bow out.
I told him I'm not well. Now, something might come wrong. Who is my double? Nobody can double Callas. Oh, I said to San Paoli, I said, look, Guido. And I knew him since ages, because he had heard me since I was first coaching with Serafin, 47. I said, look, Guido, let's look facts in the face. After tomorrow is a performance, and it's an opening night, and you have the president. If I get sick, who will? He says, nobody can double Callas. All right. So you take the responsibility of saying, Callas was sick, and we will not substitute her. I was sick. I could not continue, because if I was well, I would have continued, and I was spit in their faces of my enemies, because I don't like it. But if I am attacked, I must defend myself. And if I can make my enemies I would not kill them, but if I could make them go on their knees in front of me, I can, I will, and I must.
The audience heard her struggling to finish the first act. It was apparent that she was having problems with her voice, and at the end of Act 1, an announcement was made from the stage that the performance was cancelled. The next morning, the headlines read, Callas walks out on the President of Italy. To give credence to their claim that the walkout was due to Callas's temperament and had nothing to do with the condition of her voice, the press showed footage of Callas rehearsing Norma, apparently in perfect health. What they failed to point out, however, was that this so-called rehearsal was footage from a studio recording filmed 3 years earlier.
The president has to be content with one act only. Then Maria Callas says she doesn't feel well. So as not to disappoint you, too, our cameraman dropped in on a rehearsal. Perhaps he had a premonition what would happen on the night. As you can hear, Maria's voice was perfect. Maria has been known to walk out before, so if you want to be sure of hearing her, don't get all dressed up. Just go to a rehearsal. She usually stays to the end of that.
She sued the Rome Opera to clear her name, but it took a decade before there was a judgment in her favor. By then, the Rome walkout had become part of the Callas myth.